Marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. Marriage, that blessed arrangement, that dream within a dream.
Mel Brooks is comedy royalty, a writer, director, performer, and songwriter whose name instantly calls to mind riotous movie parodies, Broadway blockbusters, and a 7-decade run of jokes that still land with perfect timing. From The Producers and Blazing Saddles to Young Frankenstein and Spaceballs, he helped define what American screen comedy could be, then proved he could do it again on the stage with a record-setting Broadway smash. To many fans, he's the last living link to the Borscht Belt Tumblr tradition, to Sid Caesar's legendary writer's room, and to an era when a fearless gag could redraw the borders of popular culture. But the most revealing chapter of Brooks's life is not a punchline, it's his love story with Anne Bancroft and the choice he made after losing her. Let's take a look at why Mel Brooks refuses to ever marry again. The love that reframed everything.
I've heard that you're married to the most beautiful woman in the world. Is that true, Mr. Brooks?
No, I'm married to Anne Bancroft.
Mel met Anne Bancroft in the early 60s, and the spark between the fast-talking Brooklyn comic and the luminous stage and screen star became the steady flame that shaped the rest of his life. They married in 1964, a union that lasted 41 years until her death in 2005. Brooks has often credited Bancroft with nudging his creativity at crucial moments. When The Producers first leaped from screen to stage, he consistently described Anne as the guiding force behind his decision to take the risk of musical theater, one that turned into a record-breaking cascade of Tony Awards. Their home was as much a workshop as a refuge. Friends and collaborators have long said that Brooks and Bancroft shared works in progress, swapped notes, and believed deeply in one another's talents. For Brooks, who came up in the tough, competitive trenches of live television and Borscht Belt stages, Anne offered a blend of artistic seriousness and playful encouragement that sharpened his instincts without dulling his edge. She was a fellow professional, a confidant, and an audience of one whose laugh meant more than any opening weekend tally. When Brooks writes about Anne in his memoir, he doesn't dress their life up with myth. He tells stories in his familiar voice, warm, direct, a little mischievous, and you can hear the rhythm that made his films sing. He emphasizes the ordinary dinners, rehearsals, long talks, the way great creative lives are still made of small shared moments. That everyday texture is part of why his stance on remarriage feels rather natural than dramatic. He's not staging a grand gesture, he's describing a reality he lives with honesty. The most succinct statement he's made about that choice arrived years after he became a widower, once the public had grown used to seeing him solo. In 2023, he put it as simply as he could. Once you are married to Anne Bancroft, others don't seem to be appealing. It's not a lament and not a slogan. It's a line of pure recognition, the punchline of a life that found its perfect co-star and never needed to recast the role. Grief, work, and the shape of a later life. In 5, Brooks did not disappear. He kept working, kept creating, and kept showing up for audiences. Yet the rhythm changed. The man who had loved making cameos in his own films, who thrived in the camaraderie of a writer's room, poured his energy into projects that honored his past, and satisfied his curiosity without requiring the frenzied pace of youth. He collaborated on a stage version of Young Frankenstein. He returned to long-beloved bits with Carl Reiner, his dear friend and partner in mischief going back to the 2,000-year-old man. He stepped into voice roles that let him be a presence audience could hear, witty and alive, even when he was not the face on screen. Grief did not silence him, but it did refine his choices. You can feel a through line from the Brooks who sang comic battle songs at army bases right after World War II, to the Brooks who narrates a later anthology of sketches, to the Brooks who writes down the full sweep of his memories in All About Me. When someone has spent so much of his life turning chaos into laughter, it is striking that he describes loss with such clarity and tenderness. He does not dwell in grand abstractions. He keeps returning to Anne and the simple fact that her partnership changed what he wanted from the rest of his time. That's why his refusal to remarry reads less like renunciation and more like a continuation. In interviews, he answers the personal question with a personal truth. Then he moves gracefully back to work, to friends, to the craft he loves. The balance between remembrance and momentum is not easy for public figures, especially legends who are asked to explain themselves over and over. Brooks puts the explanation in one line, then lets the work do the rest of the talking. The later work reflects that equilibrium. He co-wrote and produced History of the World Part 2, a gleeful sprint through eras and styles that let him revisit the sketch energy of his earliest triumphs, this time as a guiding voice. He took pleasure in mentoring, in shaping tone, and in adding that distinctive Mel Brooks snap to the rhythm without needing to front every scene. The choice to remain single is part of the same pattern, a preference for what is real to him, not what should round out an image. A home built on friendship, family, and habit. Ask those who know Brooks what grounds him, they'll mention friendships that span decades. Before Carl Reiner's passing, the two shared a simple, enviable ritual: watching old movies, trading quips, and turning evenings into a private writer's room. That daily laughter couldn't replace Anne, but it gave Brooks continuity and comfort. Surrounded by the right companions, he's never felt the need to search for another marriage. Family remains central. Brooks takes deep pride in his son Max, whose World War Z became a worldwide hit. Watching Max succeed brings him joy separate from fame or awards, shaping how he spends his later years. Grateful, busy, and content. There's no sense of longing, only balance and fullness. Brooks also keeps his artistic friendships alive through his work. Classic literature and old films still echo in his jokes, a habit nurtured early by mentors who pushed him towards writers like Gogol. These influences now sustain him quietly, offering the same structure and purpose others might seek in a new relationship. His daily rhythm, writing, recording, reflecting, is enough. A new romance would only disrupt the harmony he's already found. Identity, age, and the comfort of self-knowledge.
You were born in Brooklyn.
I was born in Brooklyn, yes, which is a province of New York.
Was there something special about being Jewish in Brooklyn at that time in New York?
No, everybody was. Every single human being in Brooklyn was a Jew at that point, so there was nothing special about it. It was quite ordinary. It was a pedestrian thing to be. I mean, I went to Manhattan, and I met all these Gentiles, and it was a little frightening. That was frightening. I said, my God, you mean there are other people besides Jews in the world?
Mel Brooks has always been a public artist who uses a very private compass. He talks about his Jewish identity in terms of peoplehood, pride, history, and a toughness learned early that he later clothed in comedy. That frankness, learned in Williamsburg and refined on stage, carries into how he discusses age. He's not bashful about being in his 90s, he jokes about it. He frames it as one more comedy bit to be mined. The point is not to win a battle with time, but to keep playing the game the way he likes to play it. That's another reason his stance on remarriage feels honest. It suits his sense of who he is, how he works, and what he values. He built a singular life with Anne, and in its absence, he built a later life that honors it, rather than seeking a replacement. As a performer, Brooks was a virtuoso of parody, but as a person, he's avoided parodying himself. He did not try to chase the old energy by repeating every old move, and he did not alter his personal life to fit anyone's romantic expectations. Instead, he found new ways to be Mel Brooks, a voice role here, a series there, a memoir that reads like a conversation with an old friend. The appeal of the approach is not only artistic, it's humane. He's also lived long enough to see institutions honor him with every imaginable prize, from the AFI Life Achievement Award, to a Hollywood star, to the Kennedy Center honors, to an honorary Academy Award in 2024 that saluted a lifetime of making people laugh. Those ceremonies often end with a standing ovation, which is a kind of public embrace. Brooks receives it with gratitude, then he goes home to the quiet he has chosen. That quiet is not empty, it's full of memory. Going full circle.
She used to seamlessly go from tragedy to comedy. And I said, your husband, who's a genius, I can't do that.
The arc from Tumblr to EGOT is a classic American story. Mel Brooks learned his craft watching Sid Caesar at the dawn of television variety, surrounded by future legends. Timing became his greatest lesson, not only in comedy, but in life itself. When he made The Producers, later reinventing it for Broadway, he proved he could still surprise even his admirers. That instinct for timing is the same one he applies to Love and Loss. For Brooks, the curtain fell perfectly on one role, his marriage to Anne Bancroft, and he never felt the need to audition for another. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Mel Brooks' devotion to Anne Bancroft explains his later career choices? Let us know in the comments section below.